Getting your book published via the traditional route takes a lot of time, energy, and effort. For most authors, you have to be incredibly patient and persevere through a lot of rejection before you get that coveted book deal from a Big 5 publishing house. If you're preparing to query literary agents, or perhaps if you have already sent out some queries but haven't gotten any bites yet, you might be wondering if there is anything you can do as an author to increase your chances of getting picked up by a literary agent or publisher. So today I'm going to offer you some tactical tips for putting your best foot forward when trying to get your book traditionally published, and things you can do to increase your odds of attracting an agent or a publisher. If you are interested in the book publishing industry, or you have a current book in progress, I recommend subscribing to my channel if you haven't already. Every week, I either post videos with publishing tips like this one, or I talk about how to strengthen your manuscript, as I'm also a developmental book editor. I also have a free resource for my YouTube viewers in the description below. It is called My Story Self-Assessment. It's a worksheet to help you determine what the strong points and weak points are in your current work in progress so that you can revise and take it to the next level. This is also going to sign you up for my newsletter, where I give exclusive insights you won't find anywhere on my channel, so don't miss out on that. Let's dive into the first thing you can do to improve your chances of getting published, and that is strengthen your manuscript. By far, the best way to improve your chances of getting traditionally published is to make your story the strongest it can possibly be. Because when literary agents and publishers are considering a book either for representation or for publication, the manuscript itself is the most important deciding factor, especially if you're writing fiction. The story itself has to hold up and be engaging and be compelling for a literary agent or publisher to feel confident that this is an investment worth taking on. So if you have written a book but you haven't gotten any external feedback on your story, I strongly suggest doing so before you seek a literary agent or a publisher. That said, you want to make sure it is someone whose opinions and feedback you can trust. Someone who has the ability to give you helpful and constructive feedback that's going to help you elevate your story on the next draft. This could be a beta reader that you find in a writing group, or it could be via a writing workshop setting, or it could be someone that you hire as a professional editor. Some questions that you want to potentially ask this critique partner or editor would be, does the beginning hook the reader? Does the reader get invested in the main characters? Are there any areas where the pacing lags? And does the ending strike the right sentiment? As you can see, what you are trying to do at this level is structural or developmental editing, which is refining the big picture elements of the story. When you are reaching out to a literary agent or publisher, it's typically not so important to work through copy edits or proofreading unless you have issues with grammar or spelling that need corrected, because they do understand that this is still a working draft. That said, you want this draft to be as strong as possible, because that is going to increase the chances that a literary agent or publisher is interested in it. Another way to strengthen your writing overall is to consume resources. There are a plethora of writing resources online if you know where to look, including podcasts, reading books on the craft of writing, watching YouTube videos like mine, or simply reading other published books in general is going to help make you a stronger writer. My next tip for improving your chances of getting published is to research the market. Agents and publishers are much more likely to respond positively to a book that has a clear fit in the current publishing landscape. After all, they want to make sure that they are able to sell copies of the book and that their investment is not a high risk. To think about it in other terms, a chef might have a great idea for a new item on the menu at the restaurant they work at, but if the clientele of that restaurant doesn't like that particular flavor combination or isn't drawn in by that particular idea of a dish, then it's unlikely to be popular. Similarly, your book should feed a specific craving. There are cases where something totally new and unexpected takes off, but those are rare, and more often than not, your book is going to fall into a defined genre. So take some time and try to think about what the target audience for your book is. The best way to do this is to find some realistic and recent comparable titles. Think of these as the books that would sit next to your book if they were on the shelf together at a bookstore. Ideally, you can draw that comparison so that literary agents and publishers can see that readers of these specific books will also like to read your book. I have a whole other video that goes into the nuances of choosing comparable titles, so check that out if this part is stumping you. It is a admittedly really challenging part of the querying process, but it is very important, so I recommend diving into it. Ultimately, authors who can clearly demonstrate who they are writing for and who will be drawn to their work are typically going to be more successful. My next tip for improving your chances of getting published is to publish other works. One way to boost your credibility and potentially attract the attention of an agent or a publisher is to publish short-form pieces in literary outlets. This could be related to your book, but doesn't necessarily have to be. For instance, if you're writing a memoir about adoption, you could publish a personal essay about adoption in a relevant outlet. If you do write a splashy or viral feature piece or personal essay that is circulated widely or read widely online, that can catch a literary agent's attention because they do keep track of the top literary outlets. For example, the New York Times Modern Love column is very highly regarded. And if they read something that really resonates with them or the writing style really captivates them, they could reach out to that author and see if they have a literary agent or if they have a book project in mind. But even if you publish in one of these outlets and the agent doesn't come to you, you can still reference this piece in your bio, which may catch an agent's attention because it shows that you do have some publishing credentials. In my view, it can also be helpful to get your head in a short form or different type of story to kind of take a break from the novel or the book that you've likely been immersed in and day out. My next tip for improving your chances of getting published is to refine your query letter. Your query letter is essentially your pitch to a literary agent. It should get them excited to read the sample pages of your manuscript and pique their interest so that they really want to dive into this story. A strong query letter can make an agent even more excited about you as an author, but on the flip side, an unprofessional or poorly executed query letter can do the opposite and actually be a turnoff for a literary agent, even if your manuscript is really strong. Think about it in terms of a cover letter and a resume. Even if your resume has all the right pieces and is great and strong, if your cover letter is super unprofessional, it's unlikely that someone is going to want to offer you a job. Or at the very least, they're going to have some questions for you as to why the cover letter fell so short. So you want to ensure that your query letter includes all the necessary information and is professionally presented. While a query letter alone will not get you a book deal, you have to have strong sample pages as well. It is an asset that can enhance your overall submission to the agent and make you more attractive. So you should use it to your advantage. I have a whole other video that goes into the breakdown of every paragraph a query letter should include, so check that out if you're not quite sure if you are including all the right elements. My final tip for boosting your chances of getting published is to build your platform. Now, I include this point with hesitation because I know many aspiring authors, many of you who watch this channel, are extremely stressed about not having a huge online following, and you're concerned that this means you're never going to get published. The truth is, and I emphasize this, you do not need a huge online following in order to get a book deal from a traditional publisher or an offer of representation from a literary agent. However, since this video is about increasing your odds of getting published, I do have to include it because it can add to your appeal to a literary agent or a publisher. Remember, at the end of the day, selling books is a business. And if you have a built-in network of people who are likely going to buy your book, that's obviously going to make for a more attractive investment from a literary agent and publisher. It is true that publishers and agents will even sometimes reach out to influencers with large online followings to see if they have any interest in writing a book. Because to them, they're seeing that built-in fan base to sell to, and they're seeing the opportunity for book sales. So if you have any inkling or interest in building your author platform, it could be worthwhile. The ones that I would recommend focusing on and that I see most widely used in the literary community are Twitter. Yes, even with everything going on with Elon's takeover, there is still a large literary community on Twitter. So for now, it is still worthwhile. Also TikTok, there is an entire book talk community, which is now shaping trends in the publishing industry. There are tables in bookstores specifically for book talk books. So definitely check that out if you have any interest in TikTok. And Instagram is also widely used, especially with influencers who post book reviews and books on their shelves. I hope this helped you feel more optimistic about your publishing journey and encourage that there are steps that you can take that are in your control to increase your chances of getting a literary agent and going down the traditional path. Let me know in the comments where you're currently at with your work in progress. If you have queried literary agents yet or are preparing to, I'd love to hear where you're at. And if you are currently in the process of trying to publish your debut book, I recommend checking out my video about debut authors and stigmas that are not true. I debunk some myths about debut authors that might be of interest. And if you found this video helpful, it would mean a lot to me if you hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and grab that free story self-assessment waiting for you in the description below. Thanks so much for watching and happy writing.